Yes, people, back again. This is Where the Key's At. Today's topic, we're talking about the impact of injustice between the case of Stephen Lawrence to Mark Duggan and the aftermaths between both of them, and also the influences of programs such as the Real McCoy and the Bill. So onwards, we're going to put on to my fellow co-hosts.
What's up? Eli's in the building.
Eli.
I kind of like it over on this sofa. I don't ever come going back over there. Just
comfort zone.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about, where do you think, does anything feel different in terms of, at least with how you've been perceived as a black man in the whole society of surrounded by racism? Do you feel anything's changed between back then and as to now?
Back then to Stephen Lawrence case?
Yeah. Well, for those that didn't know, Stephen Lawrence was a man that was unfortunately killed by 5 white men, and they were in a case where the police knew who did it, but they didn't act upon it. So that contributed towards the McPherson report, where they were found eventually that they were guilty after double jeopardy, where that timeline of evidence was supposed to be handled a lot better.
I suppose, like, for me, that happened when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I can remember it clear as day. Everyone can remember it clear as day. You know, so at that time I hadn't had any involvement with the police on my own before. I have actually had involvement with the police, but not individually for me. So, but I'd seen the conflict between the community and the police already. So I remember when that happened, and it was like a warning shot. These kind of things can happen to you. So I was always worried. I think that had such an impact on my life, more than it did on the police officer that was 10 years old who saw it. I don't think that had as much impact on them. I think they developed some policies and whatnot when they found the police to be institutionally racist towards the end of the 90s. But again, we find with things that happen later on, those policies don't necessarily hold any weight. You know, it's just a couple of training sessions or whatever it is. It's not developed a culture of fairness within the police. But what it did do for me is it made me alert to no matter what happens, I've got to be defensive first, because I'm not going to be protected, which is a shame.
I was too young when that actual incident happened. I was a bit younger, real young when that happened. I won't give up my age, but I was real young. But when the McPherson report came out in 99, that's when I was introduced as to my surroundings as being a black man, and just understanding that people's perception of me is skewed towards to the negative, and just understanding that being black and British is something where people almost frown upon, even though behind closed doors they revere you, but they won't say it to your face. I was given the light of understanding that you pretty much have to work a lot harder to be considered equal, at least in this country.
It's crazy that happened, and this guy, was it after a youth club or something like that, wasn't it? They were out at a bus stop. And as soon as the services show up or the police show up, they're treating his friend like he's done something wrong, and he's telling them. They're not listening to him. And the mad thing is, that happens now a lot. Like, especially race, colour is so easy to see for a police officer. Culture, you can't really see. So colour, they can see straight away. They can see a black person and a non-black person. And, then the unconscious bias kicks in. And they're thinking, well, who do I think is going to be the victim here? And they've got, police are trained to react quickly. They're trained to try and resolve issues as quickly as they can, and hopefully in a non-violent way. And so their unconscious bias has to kick in. They have to use a bit of what is their instinct. And what is their instinct? The instinct is a result of the culture, what they have been shown, what they see on the television, what they hear in the music, and they're just 1%, if that, of our culture. Like, what impact on the image of a black man do you have? You don't have no impact. You're not in control of the media, of what's shown of you.
No.
The only control of you have is yourself. So, and if you haven't met that police officer before, then you're in a losing situation.
It's true. And I think the development has been that it's been tried to be, the relationship has tried to be forward out. You've got Operation Trident where you've got...
Is that still going?
I think it's still ongoing, actually, yeah. But not as prominent as it was, where they was trying to tackle knife and gun crime as such. But the whole thing where you was saying, a couple podcasts ago, you was talking about stop and search, that kind of thing. You know, it's been utilised where statistically that it's for a reason where it's proven a success. But at the same token, it's not exactly positive to feel that, you know, you're 9 times as likely to be stopped compared to other communities as such.
So have they considered stop and search a success? How the goalposts always move.
Yeah.
So they consider that a success if they do. And what the rate of arrests from stop and search is like something stupid like 13%.
Yeah.
You can't. If your kid gets 13% in the test, you don't go, it's a success.
Yeah.
So how, you know what I mean? It's crazy how you can move the goalposts to suit the narrative that you want.
What's the difference between the cases of Stephen Lawrence and Mark Duggan? Mark Duggan his death was the result of an investigation where it ultimately sparked the London riots, and that happened in 2011. And Stephen Lawrence, his death was in 93. There's a gap of about 18 years where things has been, that, like you said, policies have been implemented and progressed, but essentially, what is the difference between now and then? Because is it more that it had to happen for things to be seen in the open?
Tell me, because I don't really know when it comes to Duggan, Mark Duggan, and his case and his murder in 2011.
Yeah.
All I was really witnessing was the riots. I wasn't close to it.
Yeah.
He wasn't covered in the same way.
No.
So has it turned out that he was more of a victim? Because obviously the way it was shown to us wasn't necessarily that way.
No, it was seen that he was, they were trying to paint the image of he was a gangster and he did certain things.
That's what I saw a lot of.
You know, that he brought a gun from such a person and was going to use it for some type of reason. But the point being is that from that is how, when they were trying to investigate the people that shot him, the SL-19, the officer, that the family came down to the police station, didn't get seen for 5 hours, and then it sparked from there, and then that's how the riots started to blow.
And so in that case, regardless of what Duggan done, the treatment of the family and the disrespect is very similar to in 93, the best friend who was treated as somebody who was a suspect.
Yeah, Dwayne Brooks,
So that's still happening 15, 16, 17, 18 years later.
Yeah.
Your son is just being killed lawfully or unlawfully. You want some answers.
Yeah.
You're not a criminal. You deserve to be talked to. And and that's the same police organisation, right? Treating the same type of people in the same way.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question in short is no.
Nothing
that changed.
But just expanding on that, because it was only when the family collaborated with Nelson Mandela that it was brought into the full light, and then it seemed to be, okay, now it's be taken seriously.
But imagine me telling myself, like, if I get caught doing something, I'm stealing from the shop, and I get caught, and then they go, "You've been stealing, right?" And I say, "No," and they go, "Well, we've got you on CCTV taking a Kit Kat." So I go, "Okay, here's the Kit Kat."
Yeah.
But imagine what else is underneath there. They're showing you what they know that you already know.
Yeah.
Because they've been caught. Well, what else was going on in that institution? They're institutionally racist. They've told us enough to shut us up.
Yeah.
You know, so those things are deep. And to change a culture, you normally have to turn over a generation. You can write policy all you want. But it doesn't change the way people think, and it doesn't change people's unconscious bias. Those riots happened. Did they actually change anything?
Not really. Not in my view. No, because just a backlog. They happened not too far from where I was living.
Right.
So it was almost like on my doorstep. So to see it happen, manifest, like I remember that very clearly because around that time, they basically put it towards where people were getting stopped and searched if you had a hoodie on and just had the attire of a roadman.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was in my young 20s when that happened.
Yeah.
And I remember it quite vividly because there was a 10 p.m. curfew with that. So if you weren't in your house by then, they were, pulling people, arresting people and that.
Really?
Yeah.
And it started spreading to other cities, didn't it, and whatnot as well?
Yeah, and it's the thing, like the riots became known for what it looked like. It's just a copycat. Everyone was just doing it for the sport of it. It wasn't really no type of collective objective where you've crushed down a whole town for a reason. That no one's going to Whitehall, no one's going to House of Parliament and really demanding justice as such. But it is one of those where what I'd say is that the riots was built on, frustration, and then people kind of took it like, oh yeah, we'll try that as well, and it just spread like wildfire. Okay, we're gonna squash beef for a weekend. Me and you gonna run together and go do this JD sports and run in and take our stuff that we want.
Yeah. What I would say is though. People would use the riots and all riots for their own personal frustrations. You don't have to share a frustration,
No.
People who are satisfied, healthy, wealthy, don't riot. What are they rioting for? People who have everything going for them and nothing going against them won't riot because there's no injustice being done to them. They're quite happy. Things are good the way they are. So everyone who's rioting are actually people who feel like they're being oppressed in some sort of a way, or things are unjust for them in some sort of a way. It just might not always be the same cause, but once you see, hold on, they're standing up for whatever, I'm going to do something too. I might rob JD, or I might rob, an electrical store, but would I rob that electrical store if I had the means to get that stuff for myself? If I had that already? No, I wouldn't, right?
Yeah, it's true,
what I really remember, what's quite interesting is how it was reported on the news. And they had, people were messing up their neighborhoods and whatnot, but they had gone to like Epsom or something like that and started messing up these kind of small independent stores on one of the high streets. And that was a big story. This is like a week into the riots. It's a massive story. The locals were obviously all well-to-do, upper middle class people, and they were like, I can't believe this is happening in my neighborhood. Why is it happening here? We don't have a problem here. And that just, those words and the way the news kept repeating it just made me think, well, look, you're saying what the problem is, or we don't have a problem here. Like the police look after us here. We don't have criminal-minded people here. Why not? What's the difference between your neighborhood and their neighborhood? So are you trying to say it's the type of people that live there? So there's something inherently bad about these people that live here? Or are you saying the means that you have over this side enable you to prosper? But they don't touch on that issue on the news. The only issue was these bad people have got to this good area and now they're making our area bad. And it's so surface level, and we're so distracted by the pictures of the fires and people running out of the shops with a television that we're not really asking the real questions. No.
It was only a flash in the pan because the week or the 2 weeks afterwards, everyone's back beefing with each other and getting stabbed and all that craziness.
But that's all right, though, That's not a headline story. That's not on the news every day because it's not happening in those areas where people are doing all right.
But the people in that area have political influence over that area, and it seems to be that for those reasons that police don't trouble them because those are the people that actually have people in higher positions, like it's who you know.
And that's a very human thing, I think, like the thought that if you do something to someone that can come back on you makes you not choose that person to do anything to. So in all situations, whoever you are. And so really they know the system. They know who's benefiting from it and who's not, and the people who aren't are unfortunately picked on, and as they said in '99, institutionally chosen and picked on and unfairly treated and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Those people that committed that crime, they were quite large, and they were local people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't summed up to think, okay, the same 5 names are appearing, and nobody seems to be addressing the elephant in the room.
Written in a telephone box or something, right?
Yeah.
They knew and their connections to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I
mean, again, why would you want to trouble your own? If they're connected with the police, you don't want to. You don't want to. These other people over here. Why are you going to make trouble in your own neck of the woods for these other people who you don't even really have any feelings for? And it comes down to that. Do you know what I mean? And it happens to be the differences in this case is culture and race.
Because there's still trouble between us, the black community, and the police to this day. That's just a known fact. You know, you have to accept it at some point. Someone that you know, or you're going to have to directly come across them and know how to deal with them. You know, it kind of talks about the other podcasts, but just the other thing where we don't necessarily seem to be making strides towards the same reason. And also just, you know, as much as you got black police officers, what happens there when, okay, if they happen to know somebody that is allegedly supposed to be a criminal, whose side do they pick?
But when you do come across a criminal who is black, potentially you've got connections to them, right?
Yeah.
Because we're a small community.
Yeah.
We're not, especially in smaller towns like where I'm from, I know if I see a person who's black, I know someone who they know, or I know someone in their family. So, you know, if I've got to police them, I've got to be extra careful and make sure, because I've got to go back in that community at the end of the day. Yeah. And so that is really probably the way policing should be, right? You've got to be really careful to not offend someone or to falsely accuse someone or to hurt someone without just cause, because you will have to answer to that person's family or community when you go home. The problem with policing is, like, you know, the Met Police might be patrolling areas that they're never going to have to go to. They're never going to have to know your auntie or whatever, sit in a restaurant with someone you know, or go buy from the chip shop who your auntie runs or your cousin runs, or kids have to go to the same school as your kids. So there's no accountability.
Yeah. That's the one right there. It's a point of reference to think, okay, unless it happens to you, is it a problem?
Yeah. Yeah, but Gav, if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to worry about.
I know that, you know that, but, you know, to the smaller community of ourselves, you know, we sweating if we got a clean driver license and all that.
But that's the thing I hear. Like, if you've got nothing wrong, done nothing wrong, you got nothing to worry about. And that's because you've never been stopped, because you're not considering what happens next. Okay, you've done nothing wrong, but you've been stopped. Yeah. The first thing police normally do, especially if you're cocky like I am when you get stopped, is, because you know you've done that wrong, is they start looking deeper. And if you look for something, you can always find something. Every car, if you look enough, you can find something. So, you know, and if you can't find anything, you can intimidate people, and you can take up the time of their day, and you can make them late. And, you know, you can do all those kind of things. So, yeah, that whole Facebook comment of, well, if you've got nothing to hide, don't worry, is rubbish. And it's definitely said by someone who's never been under that kind of scrutiny before. Because you know how much of a time waste it is. You were talking earlier, but off camera, talking about the bill. And like it's linked to your experience with the police. What do you mean? I
mean by that, because the bill was definitely, I think, one of, if not the first program that I understood as to how the police perceive the black community as an IC3 male. And then, you know, reading your rights when you get arrested. You don't have to say anything while you're... You know, it may harm your defence while you're questioned, and if you do say we'll be lied in court, and if you do, they give you evidence. That kind of line. But I mean, to me right now, it's always. I mean, it was 20 years ago plus, but it's still relevant as to understanding as to, you know, the whole, at least the timeline. You know, bringing it back to the McPherson report. That was in '99. The bill was started before that. But you know, I was still young enough to grasp that. You know, police and understanding that while you're black, you definitely get a bit more harassment as such as to your out and out everyday outgoings without you know, you could be innocently just minding your business, and then you just get whoop whoop behind you, and then you get problems.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those where I'm talking about, as in the bill, it gave me a basis and a foundation as to understand, rather than my folks talk about it, I could visually see what it is to be and how it is to be black. Because, you know, they had black actors, you know, playing people that kind of look like...
Asher D was on the bill, wasn't he, once?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. But the people that kind of look like your people around your way.
Yeah.
And then you kind of see it in real time as such. Even though it's a program, it's still very much based in reality.
Yeah.
And then you come across to going forward as to, okay, you grow up and you start to experience those things. Yeah.
I don't know about the reality part though, because I would like to think... Yeah, okay. So some things they've probably got on the writing staff. They might have inside experts, or you know, they do research and all that sort of stuff. But if you're talking about representation and seeing other black people on the screen and being able to identify a situation, and when you grow up, you're in that situation. Yeah. But I very much doubt that they've had people on the writing staff and researchers who have bothered to look at how it feels and what it's like on the other side of that. I get that. It's a very one-sided narrative.
I get that.
And it's kind of, the bill you followed, it's a superhero show about police, right? You follow the police and have to solve the crime, and they do it. They use their super policing powers to solve it. And you're never seeing the other side of it. You're seeing yourself as a perpetrator, sometimes a victim on the show. But in terms of the realism, is the research and the development is probably one-sided. The team of writers probably all look the same, and it's nothing to do with when there are black people on it, because it's all types of victims and criminals on it, right? They spread the wealth a bit, but that side of realism, it's not there, is it?
No, but I was saying that, you know, when it especially as a young kid, TV does play an influence as to how you perceive the world. Because I grew up with terrestrial TV, so I didn't have the luxury of Sky and cable like other people. I literally had 4 or 5 channels, and that was it. That was my world that I saw on the outview.
But that is like, they know that. They know most kids at that time, especially most families, probably had 1 to 5. Everyone who had a telly had 1 to 5, guaranteed. Yeah. Although 5 was a bit dodgy in my area, but we still had 5. Yeah. And if there's a police show on, you're watching a police show, and this is your perception of the police. Imagine if you're not a criminal, you're not someone who's targeted by the police, so therefore you've never had any involvement with the police, apart from if the police come and help you for something. Yeah. You watch that show, and you kind of softened up by it. You're like, yeah, you know, the system works, and the police... you know, are fair. And it softens them up to when we complain and when we say something's wrong, they're like, yo, nothing's wrong. I don't hear about none of that. Yeah. And they might not say the bill looks all right, but actually that's the image of the police that they've seen and they've heard and they've felt. It's crazy. I think we need harsh realities to remind not just us, but everyone that it's not always black and white. There's a bit of grey. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, there is that, and also the privilege and the prejudice that, you know, it's not as bad as it seems, as you were saying, but some people don't grasp it, because that means they would have to look in the mirror and be like, look, I get this because of how I look, compared to somebody that doesn't look like me has to go through all this scrutiny just to be accepted. It's not no coincidence that, you know, these things are, you know, they both were handled by the police. You know, one was an incident where the handling of the evidence, and one was directly done by the police as to how they perceived somebody that they were investigating, shot the man. You know, there's grey areas as to if the gun was supposed to be nearby, but the point being is that, you know, it was a whisper of something what he alleged did, compared to hard evidence as to what was right there in their face. Imagery. Yeah. imagery affects your perception of anything. If I always see squirrels biting people, when I see a squirrel, I'm kicking it.
Yeah,
I understand that completely.
Yeah.
Real McCoy.
The real McCoy. I think the real McCoy. I think it's got to be said that the real McCoy. I mean, for those that don't know, it's on for a limited time only on the iPlayer, but also
it's not on there anymore.
It's still there.
Okay, cool.
It's just that I can't say when it's going to take it off, because for years people have been asking for it to be put on the screen, but they somehow found the archives and now they slapped it on iPlayer. But after 25 years, you decide to just do it. Yeah.
But anyway, the real McCoy. Yeah,
the real McCoy. It was definitely, at least in my household, it was the program where everybody would stop to watch around. And gather around and watch it. Yeah. I think that was the only program we were all allowed to stay up late and watch.
Yeah.
I was real young when it was, the seasons were on TV, but essentially that was the only program as black people we actually saw that people looked like us, and they weren't as much as I didn't get.
You're a little bit younger than me, so there were two shows to me. But carry on.
I wasn't fully able to grasp what the jokes were.
Yeah.
But even though I look at it now, there's things that are education, entertainment, where they combined with what could be said in hard topics with a little humor.
Mm-hmm.
Such things as racism and just being us day to day, and just little nuances of accents, and this person looks like that person, and but it's one for people to check out at a later date. But I think if people understood that was the culture back then in the 90s, it's still very relevant today, because in cycle there's still things there that you can still take from today and think, oh, I never thought about that, but that's still relevant today.
But humanized us as well, and it was Desmond's as well. So Desmond's was that other one, right?
yeah.
That's the second one, and that showed the difference in generations and how we see ourselves in this country as part of this country and first generation British and whatnot. But then I think it's interesting that to humanize us, we have to use comedy. We always have to use singing and comedy so that we are non-threatening. And are humanized, and we have to show that light-hearted side of ourselves for people. Well, we think we do, for people to really, really have a good opinion of us.
We could talk about atrocities all day as to what we've come from. And,
no one's going to be on your side if all you talk about is the badness that's happened to you. They're not going to empathise if they haven't been there, if they don't,
No.
But everyone can laugh. But it's crazy that no matter how much atrocity we've been through and our ancestors have been through, the only thing that really has an impact is when we tell a joke.
This is it.
That's crazy.
It seems to stick a little bit better or a little bit longer when we start to drop jewels without sounding too, like you're being too pro-black about it. You've got to drop some type of humour undertone that makes it acceptable to the masses.
Yeah. Even though these comedies are making these points and they are mixing a bit of the sugar with the point, the people they want to reach with it aren't necessarily seeing it, and they're not getting the message. They're just laughing at it.
Yeah, you got to sometimes sugarcoat the medicine for it to be seen for the masses.
But what I'm saying is they're doing that, but the masses are just laughing.
Yeah, and that's the question.
They're not getting the picture.
Are they laughing with you or laughing at you?
Yeah, so there's sketches that I can see and I'm like, yo, they're saying this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, but he pulled his pants down.
They're not connecting the dots like that.
No, that's not what it is, you know what I mean? So does comedy really work? Probably not. Yeah. Dave Chappelle says so many powerful political things.
Yeah.
How many people of his audience who are probably 95% white, how many of them leave and think, I'm going to make a change, I'm going to make a difference because Chappelle just taught me something? Or how many of them leave the audience laughing their head off and posting memes online?
It was funny in entertainment. Like, you could point fingers like, that's funny because, he's making a joke out of himself. But when he wants to be serious, he can't be serious.
Yeah. No, he won't be heard as well. It's offensive. Comedy's not offensive. But again, it goes back to when it's time to your personality and your sensibilities, wants, needs to come out.
Yeah.
If they're offending, or if they're slightly offensive to me, I don't want to hear you. Or if they're slightly challenging for me to hear, you don't need to be heard. But if you can make me laugh, I'll laugh at you. I'll laugh with you. I'll pay you to make me laugh. I'll pay you to rap to me. I'll pay you to dance for me.
Yeah.
We're still, like, it's Spike Lee Bamboozled. We're still there. We're still entertainers. Yeah. And I think the entertainers that are taking it seriously and using that platform to really drill home their message at any expense are the ones that I've got my respect right now.
But do you see it as a problem yourself that we have to entertain people, like, you know, shake and dance, all of that? Like, we can't be militant minded. We're like, look, I'm not for all of that. All of that, you know, all of that business where you can, you know, and this ain't no time to smile. We need to get serious. You know, you got other leaders, you know, such as Farrakhan and them kind of people that be like, look, I told you years ago that the enemy's telling you to do this, and you lot just running around like lost sheep, ain't really paying attention to what's really in your face. And then coming around to where people seem to be this term woke. You know, you're woke now. Where was you before? You were sleepwalking. What were you doing? Yeah. You know, you it's okay now, Black Lives Matter. Okay, yeah. Where's those same people at now with, you know, what's going on? You know, it's a protest. Yeah. But, you know, there's only so much you could be peaceful before you be like, look, you go fight fire with fire. Yeah. And this is the thing. People don't seem to be grasping the idea of that it needs to be said in the open. Like, why is it that certain militias get, you know, called a cult and other people don't really be given that label? And we have a difference of opinion as to, I'm coming from where I'm coming from, my culture. I found my identity, right? I know who I am, but I have to prove myself to you that I'm of equal in that sense. And this is the thing where we're talking about, you know, at least the injustice of, you know, from the system to the police to how everything's well-rounded, where we don't seem to be getting the fair treatment. You know, we have opportunities as the youngers. Yeah. You know, the elders have the experience and the wisdom to give to us. You know, if you combine that, that's just an atomic bomb in itself. Yeah. You know?
And I think that's happening in small pockets. It is happening in small pockets. There are some switched on young people that are making moves.
You got to understand that, you know, us as people are like this, you know, take each finger as it is. But once you start doing this, it becomes a problem. Like, there's strength in numbers. And this is not to be like, you know, solidifying black power, but, you know, you got to understand, I could do more damage with this than with an open hand like this, you know? But it's not to shy away from the fact of, you know, in the 60s of the civil rights, they worked with less. Yeah. And they did twice as much as what we're doing now. And you got to think some people would be turning in their grave if they saw what happened. But, you know, I make it all to mean that right now, being, you know, any person that is Pan-African or a nationalist for any whatever side of being of our community, people need to understand that right now, you know, there needs to be some type of, I don't know if you call it Blexit, where you can just, you know, us as people need to, you know, exit and do for ourselves, for at least come out of that system and make our own way of life. Because right now we seem to be in a crossroads. We're like, okay, you could stick with being in the house, or you could be in the field and do for yourself. Because right now, it seems to be you're relying on someone else to do for you what you need to do for yourself. Yeah. And he's not going to take you seriously.
And you were saying about own way of life, and I think some people hear that and be like, well, we've got to reinvent how we live. And that's not what it is. Like, our own way of life really just means doing for self, right? Yeah. So, you know, if you came into an amount of money, either through like, I don't know, hard work or luck or whatever, what are you going to put on for your people to be able to have opportunities and for you to work together? And that's your own way of life, right? Yeah. Maybe you have a factory that makes chairs or something, and you employ people from your area, and you work together, and you know, his mum is a receptionist and her dad, you know, sources materials, but then you become the center of something. And that stuff actually is realistically can happen.
It can happen,
You know, it can happen. It's the the want to do it, it's the understanding that it needs to be done. And a lot of communities have black people with lots of resources in them. And we need to do more to reverse the culture and the message that black people can't work together and shouldn't work together, and nothing good comes from it. And it starts at the top. It starts with those people who are visible in our community, to always surround themselves with people who are from their community. So we can see, oh yeah, we need to work together because that's how that person got there. When you see people that are at the top and they're not surrounded by people that are like them from our community, subconsciously somewhere we must be thinking, well, boy, I need to do what they're doing to get to the top.
You know, they say that hard work beats talent when talent want to work hard. You know, we seem to be working hard enough, but are we working smart enough? Because when you talk about us being as collectively available to combine resources, it seems to be like you said, we see the higher we go up, we seem to be leaving behind those that were actually fundamentally in our corner. And then you come to a point of what is success? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? It's not necessarily, because money can't buy you happiness. It could buy you choices, but it's not going to be happiness. We're a peaceful people. We don't really need to be, we don't want to be bothering you too much. We seem to make noise the first 2 weeks, and then after that, it's just okay, back to normal. As much as we talk about, some people just be like shouting reparations. What does reparations look to such people that don't know what reparations look like? What I mean by that is, okay, when you hear reparations, the first thing people think of is monetary.
I do, to be honest. I'm thinking money, like how much? Or
and that's a question
40
itself.
acres.
How long is a piece of string?
Yeah.
So
terrifying.
Well, that's, when you talk about that, we can, people can crunch numbers. It will never be enough. I think once we at least get back to that, the continent of Africa, it reinvigorates our vibrations, because we're almost like lost vessels just walking around like zombies, where we don't really know ourselves. So in the basis of our history, we seem to be just taking face value of this atrocity happened, so nothing could come of me since then, even though, whatever happened has created this environment as to where I'm having to fight for everything that I've got. And then you come back to such place as Africa, which has been pictured in a way where you see that people seem to be, they talk about famine, they talk about places where it's poor and shelter. People just seem to be on their last, dehumanized. But then you come across, you're like, hold on, there's another side of Africa. Africa's so vast. Like I said, if Africa stopped working tomorrow, the world is just kaput. Like, you've literally come back home and think, rah, I'm home. I'm actually home. And then tears start forming, and you think, wow, my peoples went through all of this, right? And I still ain't using the opportunities that is available to me. If I don't learn anything from this trip, I gotta make it happen now. Because people, like we said, the Middle Passage, some people didn't make it. Well, 100 million didn't make it from the Atlantic, from one side to the other. But, if they can see that you as a person, the descendant of those people, that you was able to do something for yourself, they'd be like, whether people are, seen as spiritual or religious, you got to see it as a lesson that there are people that really, if they had the choice, they would do more with less, and you have it all there, and you choose not to use it, what's available to you.
All right, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Where the key's at for today. What do you think, Gav?
Yeah. What we talked about today, the injustice from Stephen Lawrence to Mark Duggan, these are the things that are whole innately need to be said at some point in time. Because right now, it seems to be that people are not collectively using the resource that is available. And I mean it to say that right now, as much as we got social conditioning, you got social distancing, where's this social entity of us being together? Where's that? Where is it?